Section number 21 of the Delinquent, Volume 4, Numbers 1 through 7, by National Prisoners' Aid Association. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Issue number 7, July 1914, Part 3. Events in Brief. Under this heading will appear each month numerous paragraphs of general interest relating to the prison field and the treatment of the delinquent. The Ethics of Governor Blease. The executive of South Carolina, who has pardoned 1,200 convicts in 3 years, has written about it all. Here are some of the reasons he gives for pardons. In telling why he paroled a Negro named Sam Gaskins, convicted of manslaughter, the governor wrote, "This Negro, being engaged to a Negro girl, called to see her, and in fooling with a pistol, it went off and killed her. It seems to have been a very sad accident. However, after a second thought, possibly it was for the good of humanity, for had they married, no doubt they would have brought forth more Negroes to the future detriment of the state." In explaining why he pardoned J. Allen Emerson, a white man who was serving a life sentence for murder, he said that the imprisonment of Emerson had seriously impaired the health of the man's sister. "Her life," the governor states, "is worth more to her and her children, and is worth more to the citizenship and motherhood of this country than the incarceration of her brother is worth to the state." In pardoning Roland Paris, who was convicted of assault and battery on his brother-in-law with intent to kill, the governor explains that Paris was protecting his sister from abuse. "I congratulate him," the governor says, "for being man enough to protect his sister from a drunken husband. In fact, I think there should be an appropriation made by which the governor could award him a gold medal of honor for his action." The governor thinks that if any white man calls another a certain vile epithet and is killed, the verdict should not be greater than manslaughter. If a Negro applies the epithet to a white man, he doesn't care to say what he thinks the verdict ought to be, but people may draw their own conclusions. Germans to see prisons. An unofficial tour of inspection of American prisons and reformatories by Prussian government officers will be made during the month of August. The Prison Association of New York has been asked to arrange the details of the proposed tour. The chairman of the delegation will be Dr. Karl Finkelnberg, who for many years has been prominent as a German prison warden and who has recently been promoted to the position of director of Prussian prisons under the Ministry of the Interior, a position which had been occupied by the late Dr. Krohn. Dr. Finkelnberg, who will arrive upon the Imperator about the end of the first week in August, will be accompanied by Professor Darmstädter of the University of Berlin and also by a member of the Prussian Parliament. The tour of correctional institutions will cover a period of 35 days, during which time many of the most important prisons and reformatories of the eastern and central positions of the country will be visited. In recent years, American correctional institutions have been frequently the object of careful study by foreign countries. In 1910, several hundred foreign delegates not only attended the International Prison Congress at Washington, but made a 10 days tour, by invitation of the federal government, of many institutions. In 1913, a tour of inspection was arranged for 4 official representatives of the Prussian government: Messrs. Plaschke, Schlosser, Heichmann, and Rempis. During a month and a half, nearly 50 separate institutions were carefully inspected. The official report to the Prussian government of these gentlemen has not yet been received from that government by the United States. The German government is discussing the proposed revision of the penal law of Germany. Some of the most modern and successful features of American prison and reformatory management are being carefully considered in this connection. A relic of the Dark Ages. So the American newspaper correspondents called the Vera Cruz prison in Mexico. Most famous of all Mexico's prisons, noted for the untold thousands tortured within its walls, the castle prison of San Juan de Ulua stands today on a little island overlooking Vera Cruz, pretty much as it stood in the centuries of its existence. On April 28th, the flag of Mexico fluttered down from its flagstaff. The stars and stripes rose in its place as Captain Paul Chamberlain and a company of Marines from the North Dakota took possession. In his dispatch to the Navy Department reporting the taking over of the fortress, Rear Admiral Fletcher said, "The prison has been taken over under mutual agreement made between myself and Colonel Vigil in charge, which agreement was signed and approved by Admiral Badger. There are in the prison 43 prisoners who have been sentenced for crime, 75 who have been accused of crime but have not been brought to trial, and also 325 who have not been accused of any misdemeanor whatever. These 325 were arrested mostly within the last 2 months in order to be forced into the federal army, and for no other reason. The above data were obtained from the officer in charge. The conditions in the prison under which the 325 men are living are described as frightful." Secretary Daniels directed the release of these 325 men, ordering that the 75 awaiting trial should be held pending investigation by the American authorities into the charges against them. No stage manager putting on The Count of Monte Cristo could imagine anything more creepy than the sight which met the eyes of the American officers when the keys were turned in the rusty locks and they entered the ancient vaults, wrote an American newspaper man describing his visit to the prison. In the grim, forbidding, gloomy pile of San Juan de Ulua, the Spanish inquisitors found a building suited to the purposes and one which appealed to their torture-loving tastes. Only a 15th century Spaniard could have designed such a castle. First Field Day at Auburn, New York, Prison. Despite several hundred light cases of scarlet fever at the century-old prison at Auburn, on Memorial Day, traditions were set aside when the 1,400 prisoners there were given 3 hours in which to loaf or play and enjoy themselves in the open air. says the Poughkeepsie Press. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon they were marched into the yard in their usual companies, and at a bugle signal they were disbanded. Then they played baseball and participated in other outdoor sports. There were cheers for the winning contestants and a good time generally. At the end of the 3 hours, the bugle sounded the recall. The companies were formed again, and when the men marched back into the prison, there was not a prisoner missing, and there had not been a single infraction of discipline. In this instance, the short outing was a complete success. It did not destroy discipline, nor will it tend to create the supposition that the men are pampered at Auburn. Road making in New York. In accordance with the policy of the State Prison Department, and by means of an appropriation made at the last session of the legislature, the department has placed groups of convicts from the various state prisons at work improving roads in different parts of the state. The plan will be extended as fast as possible with the available appropriation, and it is hoped that some 500 miles of earth road will be improved during the summer. At present, there are 5 convict squads on the roads. 3 squads have been sent out from Dannemora. They are all engaged in Clinton County, 1 squad improving a bad stretch of the old military turnpike. 2 more squads are out from Great Meadow, 1 working on the Comstock Whitehall Road, and the other on the Ticonderoga-Shroon Lake Road in Warren County. So far, the plan has proved most successful. The convicts are keen for the chance of work in the open air, and the result to the counties in which the work is being carried on is gratifying in improved traffic conditions. Several squads have been made up to be sent out from Auburn Prison, but an outbreak of scarlet fever in the institution has delayed the plan. As soon as the quarantine is lifted, many prisoners will be put to work. By the provisions of the new law, the 30-mile radius from the walls of prisons within which convicts could be engaged in road work has been removed, so that they may be employed in any part of the state. In addition to this, for the first time, an appropriation has been made of $50,000 for carrying on the work of improving roads by convict labor. Boards of supervisors of the various counties are applying to the prison department for convicts to improve roads in the counties which are not included in the state macadamized system. Under the plan of Superintendent Riley, the $50,000 will be spent in improving earth roads rather than trying to build roads of macadam because of the much greater use of the appropriation. 10 miles of good earth road may be built for the amount required to construct a single mile of macadam where gravel or other proper material for surfacing is obtainable. It also costs less to maintain 10 miles of gravel road than 1 mile of macadam, declares Superintendent Riley. After the $100 million to which the state is pledged is expended on the state highways, there will be a very large percentage of the roads in the state which will not be touched by this expenditure, said Superintendent Riley. It is for the good of these roads, many of them of the greatest importance, that he wishes to direct the convict road labor particularly. Hudson Republican, June 8th. Notes. A new county workhouse costing $25,000 has been built at South Range, Wisconsin, on a tract of 160 acres, which will be worked by the prisoners. A modified form of self-government has been introduced at the New Jersey State Reformatory at Rahway by Dr. Frank Moore. Governor Major of Missouri will recommend legislation to provide for a prison farm, 1,000 acres in size to start with. Road work by state prison convicts will start in a few weeks in Wisconsin. The men will be paid a certain sum for their work. Sir A. Conan Doyle recently visited Sing Sing and agreed with everybody but the legislatures of the state of New York that Sing Sing ought to go. A commission has been authorized by the state of Pennsylvania and appointed by the governor to consider revision of the penal laws. Two of the members of the commission are Edwin M. Abbott of Philadelphia and Warden McKenty of the Eastern Penitentiary. On the 1st of July, much more stringent regulations regarding the sale and possession of cocaine and other habit-forming drugs came into effect in New York State. A spectacular and effective campaign is now being waged in New York City against dope vendors. More than 700 prisoners out of 2,000 at San Quentin Prison have been taking correspondence courses given by the University of California. Spanish is a favorite language to be studied. At Sing Sing, the new warden has started out well. He has given to the inmates Saturday afternoon for recreation and has introduced baseball and other sports. If it works successfully, the inmates will have a recreation hour daily at the close of the day's work. Several members of the Board of Managers of the Prison Association of New York recently made a tour of inspection of correctional institutions in New York, Pennsylvania, and the province of Ontario, being the guests of Mr. Richard M. Hurd in his automobile. The tour included about 1,800 miles and some 20 correctional institutions, among them Clinton and Auburn state prisons in New York, the prison farm at Guelph, Ontario, the new Central Prison site at Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, the State Reformatory of Pennsylvania at Huntingdon, the Eastern Penitentiary of Pennsylvania, the State Prison at Trenton, New Jersey, the Berkshire Industrial Farm, and the State Industrial and Agricultural Farm in New York, and about a dozen county jails. The tour occupied 2 weeks and gave a remarkable opportunity to make careful and immediate contrasts of various institutions. In New York, state road work by convicts is assuming important proportions. Superintendent of Prisons John B. Riley is strongly in favor of the outdoor employment of prisoners on roads. The Prison Commission of New York is investigating the charges of ex-warden Clancy that drugs are smuggled into Sing Sing Prison by officers and others. On July 4th, at Great Meadow Prison, 600 inmates were marched down to the prison ball field, 1/2 mile from the prison, under the supervision of inmate officers. The regular prison guards were not used. Miss Catherine B. Davis, Commissioner of Correction of New York City, has been having plenty of activity in the administration of the department. Several riots occurred at the penitentiary in the early part of July, following effective methods of reducing the amount of dope purveyed by the prisoners. More modern methods of conducting the city's correctional institution and a certain antagonism to the new reform administration of the city's correctional institutions also played a part. The riots were successfully overcome, and Miss Davis was not only on the job, but in the midst of it. In Buffalo, New York, a new county jail is to be built for the detention of prisoners prior to or during trial. The Prison Association of New York is making a strong campaign for the erection of a thoroughly modern jail with outside cells, as contrasted with the old, traditional type of inside cages, the prevalent American type of jail construction. In this campaign, the association is cooperating with a group of the Board of Supervisors of Erie County. Among those who have written long letters advocating the outside cell type of construction are Professor C.R. Henderson of the University of Chicago, Commissioner Catherine B. Davis of New York, Dr. Hastings H. Hart of the Russell Sage Foundation, Superintendent Frank Moore of the State Reformatory of New Jersey, Amos W. Butler of Indiana, and Drs. S. A. Knopf and G. M. Parker of New York City. The special committee recently appointed by the Board of Supervisors will visit institutions of both types of construction, among them the prison farm at Guelph. Because of the absence of any work under the proposed state use system which the prisoners could do, it was found necessary to continue for the present the contract system at the State Prison of New Jersey at Trenton, although, by law, all contracts should have expired on June 30th. There is agitation in Baltimore for a state workhouse similar to that of Occoquan in the District of Columbia. End of section number 21. End of The Delinquent, Volume 4, Numbers 1 through 7, by National Prisoners' Aid Association.